The airport was buzzing with life, screens flashing departures and arrivals, people rushing past with luggage and hurried goodbyes. Amidst the chaos stood Richard Blake, a man in his early 40s dressed immaculately in a crisp navy suit, his hand wrapped tightly around the leather handle of his carry-on. Standing beside him, nervously tucking her hair behind her ear, was his young secretary Eliza. To everyone around, they looked like just another business pair traveling together. But beneath the surface, this trip was anything but professional. Richard wasn't traveling for work. He was traveling for escape. For months, Richard had felt the growing distance between himself and his wife, Claire. The marriage that once felt like home had begun to suffocate him with silence, with misunderstandings that grew sharper by the day. He convinced himself he deserved a break, that he needed to breathe, to feel alive again. And so, he invited Eliza, the secretary who admired him, flattered him, and made him feel wanted in ways he thought he had lost. Richard believed this trip would be the start of something new, something exciting, but what he didn't know was that fate had already written a different plan for him, one that would shake him to his very core. And when they finally stepped onto the plane, Richard's heart nearly stopped, because the pilot, the one responsible for guiding their journey through the skies, was none other than Claire, his wife. Viewers, if you believe in kindness, forgiveness, and second chances, make sure to like this video, share it with someone who needs it, and subscribe to our channel. Let's dive deeper into this story. Richard froze in disbelief. His breath caught in his throat as he recognized her voice over the intercom. "Ladies and gentlemen, this is your captain speaking. Welcome aboard." Her tone was calm, professional, unwavering, but Richard could feel it. The storm hiding beneath those practiced words. For the first time in a long time, he was not in control. He sank into his seat, Eliza chatting beside him, oblivious to the gravity of the moment. He tried to convince himself it was coincidence, that maybe Claire did know he was here, that maybe this was just fate's cruel joke. But the gnawing weight in his chest told him otherwise. As the plane soared above the clouds, Richard's mind spiraled. Every word Claire had spoken in the past few months echoed in his head. Her pleas for him to talk, her attempt to bring them closer, her quiet tears when he chose work over dinners, business calls over family nights. And here he was, thousands of feet in the air, running away from the very woman who had once given up her own dreams to build his. He stared out the window, the sky stretching endlessly beyond the glass, and for the first time in years he felt small. Eliza leaned closer, asking if he was all right, but Richard could barely hear her. His thoughts were miles away, pulled back to the early days of his marriage. He remembered Claire's laughter on their honeymoon when they got lost in Rome, her hand clutching his as they ran through the rain. He remembered her dream of becoming a pilot, a dream she set aside when they started a family, choosing stability so he could pursue his ambition. Yet here she was, in the cockpit of a plane, living the dream she once sacrificed for him. And he was betraying her with someone else. The turbulence hit suddenly, jolting the cabin. Passengers gasped, clutching their armrests, and Richard's stomach twisted. The flight attendants reassured everyone, but Richard felt a deeper turbulence inside him, one that no announcement could calm. For the first time, he realized the fragility of everything, not just life, but love, trust, and the bonds we take for granted. Hours passed, but Richard couldn't rest. He couldn't stop wondering if Claire had seen him bored, if she knew about Eliza, and if she did, why was she still here, calmly flying them across the sky? The question tormented him. Maybe Claire wasn't here for confrontation. Maybe she was here to remind him of something he had forgotten. Who she really was, and what they once meant to each other. When the plane landed, Richard's heart raced. Passengers began filing out. But Richard lingered, his hands clammy, his legs heavy. Eliza was excited, chattering about the resort and the sunshine, but her voice felt distant. All Richard could hear was his own pulse, pounding with dread. And then as he stepped out into the terminal, he saw her. Claire stood tall in her uniform, her cap neatly in place, her eyes scanning the crowd until they locked with his. In that moment, time stopped. There was no screaming, no accusations, no scene, only silence, the kind that cuts deeper than words. Her gaze was steady, piercing through him like glass. but behind it he saw something worse than anger. He saw disappointment. He saw the woman who had believed in him, supported him, and loved him, standing before him not as his wife, but as a stranger who no longer recognized the man she married. Richard's chest ached as if someone had reached inside and squeezed his heart. He wanted to run, to explain, to undo everything, but he couldn't. He had made his choices, and now he stood in the ruins of them. He reached for Eliza's arm, but for the first time her presence felt wrong, like a shadow of something he never truly needed. Claire's eyes flickered toward the young woman beside him, and Richard swore. He saw a flash of pain before she turned and walked away without a word. That night, at the resort, nothing felt right. The laughter around the pool sounded hollow, the music on the beach grated in his ears. Eliza tried to lighten the mood, but Richard's heart wasn't there. He couldn't stop seeing Claire's face, couldn't stop hearing the silence of her disappointment. He realized then that he had been chasing something shallow, mistaking attention for love, flattery for devotion, and the cost was unbearable. Days passed, but the vacation felt like punishment. Richard couldn't escape his thoughts, couldn't drown out the guilt gnawing at him. Every sunrise reminded him of mornings with Claire, when she would brew his coffee before her own, always putting him first. Every quiet moment reminded him of the way she used to sit beside him in silence, not because she had nothing to say, but because she knew he needed peace. She had been his anchor, and he had let go. By the time he returned home, Eliza had become a stranger to him. The connection was shallow, fleeting, and meaningless in the shadow of the life he had betrayed. Richard knew he had to face Claire, but fear nearly broke him. He walked through the door of their home, the home that now felt like it belonged to someone else, and found her sitting in the living room, her uniform still neatly pressed. She didn't speak when he entered. She didn't need to. Richard sank to his knees before her, tears breaking free as he whispered apologies, begged for forgiveness, confessed his weakness and his shame. He told her that he had forgotten what mattered, that he had been blind to the treasure he already had. Claire sat quietly, listening, her face unreadable. Finally she spoke, her voice calm but trembling with the weight of truth. Richard, love isn't about grand escapes. It's about showing up, even when it's hard. It's about loyalty, respect, and trust. You broke that. Her words shattered him more than anger ever could. He realized forgiveness was not his to demand. It was hers to give, if she ever chose to. And so, Richard didn't push. He vowed instead to change, to prove through actions what words could never heal. He stopped chasing empty validation and began rebuilding piece by piece, not for her forgiveness, but to become the man she once believed he was. Weeks turned into months. Richard waited, patient, steadfast. He showed up for dinners, listened when she spoke, encouraged her dreams as a pilot. He tried not to beg for the past, but to build a future where respect could exist again. Slowly, Claire's walls softened, not all at once, but in small ways, a shared laugh, a quiet dinner, a glance that lingered. And one evening, as they sat on the porch watching the sunset, Claire finally reached for his hand. It was not forgiveness in full, but it was hope. Viewers, if this story touched your heart, if it reminded you of the power of love, trust, and second chance, please like this video, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe to our channel. Your support means the world. And before we end, tell me in the comments, do you believe people can truly change when love is on the line? Richard's journey was not about winning back his wife through grand gestures or dramatic apologies. It was about learning the hardest truth of all, that love is fragile, and once broken, it takes time, patience, and humility to mend. But sometimes when both hearts are willing, even the deepest cracks can let the light back in.